This meeting.
Okay, from our previous class, we discussed about fundamentals of networking. We talked about what is networking, how does the communication takes place inside the same building. We talked about a little bit about, what is LAN and what is WAN, what is an IP address and what is a MAC address, and the fundamentals of networking. And in today's class, we will start seeing about OSI model. OSI model is about having ease of management of network engineer work. So previously, when the OSI model was not introduced, every vendor had its own solution, right? So Cisco has their own solution, Juniper has their own solution, Arista. So any vendor you take, they have their own solution, but nothing is like concrete that everyone should follow these kind of steps to get things resolved or to build a network. So the industry standard, the industry thought that we should be getting an standard model where every vendor should be working with a compatible version. That's where the OSI layer model thought was put into the picture, right? So all the vendors should agree this model, and the ISO, International Organization of Standardization, they build this model where all the vendors will agree to make things clear, and they will be in sync with a particular thought. So they introduced the model called OSI layer model. So let's see what is OSI, and then let's talk in detail about the 7 layers of OSI model. OSI stands for Open System Interconnect. So this model, as I told you, will be helping to fix the issues faster, and also will break down the whole connectivity into 7 layers. So let's look into those 7 layers. So these are the 7 layers of the OSI model. And if you see the names, it's physical layer, data link layer, network, transport, session, presentation, application layers are the layer names. If you take the first alphabet of each layer to make it easy to understand, it's called P, D, N, T, S, P, A. There are a lot of abbreviations to remember this, but the easiest one is please do not throw saucy pizza away. Okay. So if you take the first letter, P stands for physical, D stands for data link, N stands for network, T stands for transport, S stands for session, and P stands for presentation, D stands for application, and the thing to remember is please not throw saucy pizza away. So let's talk into like why this layers come into the picture, right? So let's take an example of real time. Why do we need these layers in the first place? So let's take a simple example of two laptops trying to connect each other to each other. Okay, so let's try to work it out on that. So I'm gonna take.
ఒకసారి చూడేది ఇప్పుడు క్లాస్ అవుతుంది ఇప్పుడు సెకండ్ క్లాస్ అవుతుంది నెట్వర్క్ ఇంజనీర్ది ట్రైనింగ్ ఇస్తుంది.
Can someone mute? Whoever is talking, please. PC1 and this is PC2. And the PC1 is trying to connect to the PC2 via wired connection, right? So there have to be a cable that is connecting these both PCs. So there is a cable that is connecting PC1 and PC2. And that cable comes under the picture of physical layer. So there have to be a, I mean, even if you take a simple example like your router, once you get your router in the home for the Wi-Fi, you plug in that router into the power cord, right? It still need a cable. So any cabling, any port level connectivity, that all comes under the physical layer. Physical layer is nothing but like it will decide on the voltage, physical connectors, cables, everything that you touch. Okay, everything that is physically present that you can touch is a physical layer. So in this case, the hardware is all the physical layer. Okay. Okay, that comes under the physical layer. And the data link layer is the second layer of the OSI model. It is called layer 2. So here in this case, the data means like ones and zeros. So if you look at the NIC card of the laptop, you might be seeing like light blinking on and off, right? You might have seen if you look into a server room or in a room full of computers or servers, you might be seeing green lights blinking here and there. And that is nothing but the data being transmitted or received. It's like on, off, on, off, on, off. On means 1, off means 0. So let me show you a simple picture to get a better idea of what I'm referring to. Okay, so you're seeing the data center link lights, right? So if you observe, all the cable connections will have the link lights. So all these link lights that you're observing will be blinking on and off, like a green color light you will see on your NIC card being on and off. That is all comes under the data link layer. It is like ones and zeros being transmitted. So that ones and zeros is the data that is sent in an Ethernet format. So Ethernet is like an protocol which it will send ones and zeros in the grouping order, so that group of connections will be sent to the destination in an reliable format. So let's look into the what does the grouping means and how does that work. So let me go back to my whiteboard. So if you see, if you write a message called hello world in the PC1, that can be considered as ones and zeros like this. Okay, something like that. So this PC1 will separate them into groups, right? Let's say it broken them into multiple groups, like group 1, group 2, and group 3, something like that. So the PC1 will send the first group of data in a specific header format, which is called Ethernet format, and that will be sent to the PC2. Similarly, after the first group, it gives a break and then sends the second group, so that it have a validation on how many bits being sent and how many bits being received, and it sends the next package away. So sending of ones and zeros in a reliable format, so that the data will not be lost, can be considered in the data link layer. So we have to make sure that it is using for the error detection, and also if there is any packet, if there is any data loss, the data link layer help us to have the reliable communication. So this might sound like not clear at the moment, very clear, but once we start looking into the course more and more, we may get a better idea on that. Okay, so just think that sending data in ones and zeros, or we can call it as bits, to avoid errors. Okay, so network layer is next. It's all about IP addresses, right? So you give an IP address to this PC and you give an IP address to this PC. It's all about routing. So in network, let's say so let's say PC1 has a connection. There is one connection, and there is also another connection between the PC1 and PC2. So which path to take for the PC1 to communicate with the PC2? So it can take path 1 or it can take path 2. So in network layer, it will help us to do the routing. So network layer will take care of the path selection process. Which path is better than the other? That selection can be done using the network. So each network device will have a unique IP address in the network. So IPv4 IP addressing will be done on the network layer. Okay, so to cut it short, okay, and the transport layer. So transport layer is nothing but sending and receiving the data again, but in terms of having the reliable way and unreliable way. So there are two ways you can send the data and receive the data. So one is the reliable way and the other one is unreliable way. So let's take two examples to talk about both of those things. Let's say you are making a bank transaction. Let's say you wanted to buy a pizza tonight. You made an order, right? So you will go to, maybe let's take Pizza Hut. You go to Pizza Hut website. You will select all of your ingredients, the pizza type, the toppings, everything you will select. And then there is a page where you will enter your card details. Like if you want to pay with the card or you want to give the cash, let's say you selected the card payment. So at the card payment, it will say that, do not refresh this page. Your payment is under process. So at that time, or that transaction is a reliable transaction, because that data should not be lost. That communication should not be broken, right? So that kind of transaction can be called as a reliable transaction, because whatever data that you sent should be acknowledged by the Pizza Hut server. It should accept your payment and then should send an acknowledgement back to you. So it's like you say hello and the responder will say hello back. You both will make a reliable communication by acknowledging each other. Okay. Just like, you send a message and your friend will reply you back. Just like WhatsApp shows like a single check mark for the message sent, double check mark for the message received, and the blue check mark means it's being read by your friend, right? Similarly, a transport layer will have a reliable communication, which is called TCP, which is a reliable protocol, which will make the communication reliable between both of them. Okay. And what is unreliable protocol, which is called UDP? UDP is unreliable because, let's say you are watching a TV and let's say you're watching a cricket game. At that time, there is a loss of data for a second. You will see interruption on the game, but you don't want your game to go back and repeat the same ball. That ball is already passed away. You will move on to the next ball. You don't want your communication to go back in time and look at what happened a ball before, right? Because you wanted to enjoy something real time, but that doesn't have to be communicating in both ways. If you lost the data, that's it, it's lost, and we don't care about it. Another example is like, let's say you are having a WhatsApp call, like a voice call or a video call with your friend, and some data is lost, meaning their voice is like scrambled or you couldn't hear them, right? So what you will do, you will not worry about what happened in the past. You will ask them to either repeat that what they said, or you will cut off the call and try to call them back again because there is a bad connectivity, right? So that is an unreliable communication happening between both the parties. That is not reliable at all. But you making a bank transaction is a reliable communication versus you making a phone call, which is an unreliable communication. So there are two different protocols that make this work, which is TCP and the other one is UDP. Okay. Are you guys following me? Any questions so far?
No, sir.
So that is the transport layer. So these are the most important layers of network engineer, because this is where we spend a lot of our time to troubleshoot the issues and fix the issues. Session layer and presentation layers are more into the other parts of the IT domains that we don't really spend some time on. But IT is more, getting involved in all the layers. Like even a network engineer is doing automation now. He's also, he or she is also, working on application level security and all. So that's why it's important to understand those layers as well. So, but as a network engineer, we spend much of the time on the first 4 layers and the last 7th layer, but we don't do much on the 5th and 6th layer. Okay. But what is a session layer? Session layer will take care of, establishing, managing, and terminating the sessions. Let's say you opened Google Chrome on your laptop. That means you opened a session. Okay. And then you browsed something on your laptop, and then you closed the session. So there is a tracking that is happening from your browser to that specific website. So if you open 10 browsers, there will be 10 sessions. If you open 10 tabs on a browser, there will be 10 sessions, right? So every session need to be tracked. That tracking like establishing, managing, terminating sessions will be done by the session layer. So it's like when you are browsing a website on the internet, right? So a web browser on the internet is hosting the website, but you are making a session to that website, so that there has to be a track of all the sessions that you create that have to be tracked. So session layer will do that job. So presentation layer, as its name says, the look and feel of a website. If you open a facebook.com, there will be a look and feel of that website, right? So for example, if you have heard the term called encryption and decryption, the data will be encrypted, meaning like no one should be reading that data, and decryption means that the data is being decrypted, and if someone wants to see the data, they should be having the key to decrypt the data. Just like if you make a WhatsApp call to your friend, it says end-to-end encrypted, meaning you and your friend only can see each other on the WhatsApp call. If someone tries to capture the data in the middle, they will not understand what is being sent on the call, because it is end-to-end encrypted, meaning only you, your phone or your laptop, and your friend's phone will only have the session generated, and you both of the parties can only see the data. If someone like an engineer tries to tap the phone and capture the data, they will not see what's inside the voice call or video call. They cannot listen it because they don't have the private key to decrypt the data. So presentation layer will help us to have the reliable communication with a structured format. And there are different formats like ASCII format, EBC, DIC format. There are different formats of the presentation the computers will take care in formatting the data. So this is more into the programmability of this data, where computers use to present to the users, right? So a presentation layer is more on the formatting and structuring of the data. Okay, and the application layer is like the last layer, which is the actual application. Like WhatsApp is an application, Facebook is an application, YouTube is an application. So everything like the user interacts with, whatever the user does, the end user does on the application, like sending emails, browsing web pages, sending files, even joining the Zoom call. Zoom is an application. Anything is an application. So application is like the end user activity that he or she does as the end goal. So that is the application layer. Any questions so far? Any questions, guys?
No, sir.
Okay, Bhavana, can you tell me what is a physical layer and why it is used?
Yes, sir. The physical layer, which is like a kind of hardware where we can see and touch the things like objects in a physically, and which is known as the hardware thing, which is connected through a cable. And with the second thing, with the data link layer, the information.
That should be good enough, Bhavana. Thank you. Dilip, what is the data link layer and why it is used?
The information is segregated into bits and it is transported to the endpoint, so where to the next layer. You can say that.
Okay, Mahendra, what is the network layer? Mahendra? The weather is evening.
Recording in progress.
Okay.
Recording stopped.
Monesh Venkul, what is network layer and why it is used? Diksha, what is a network layer and why it is used?
Network layer, in network layer, every network has a different IP address. So it will generally select the best path from the given multiple paths. Like it will choose what is the best path.
Thank you. Sai Charan, what is a transport layer and why it is used?
Is main responsible for transmitting the.
Yes, sir. Sorry. Can you ask again?
What is a transport layer and why it is used?
A transport layer. It is a TCP, and it has two CPN rules. It has TCP rules.
That's not correct.
Okay. Sorry. It has the TCP and UDP.
I want you to be more focused on the class.
Yeah.
Pranit,
Yes. Yes.
what is a session layer and why it is used?
It is mainly responsible for arranging sessions between the.
Pranit Reddy, what is a session layer and why it is used?
Well, actually, I joined in the first, but unfortunately, due to some network issue, I disconnected. So now I'm trying to connect from the reconnect, but I'm unable to reconnect.
Okay. Akash, what is a session layer and why it is used? Akash? Pranit Reddy, sorry, Ramadevi, what is a session layer and why it is used?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Tracking all the sections that are browsed. It is a session layer. It is used for how much time it is a session for?
Can you elaborate?
How much section acknowledgement it has to wait until the received acknowledgement when two terminates the session.
There is no clarity, Ramadevi. We'll move on. Ishwar?
Yeah, hello.
Yes.
Yeah, basically the session layer, what it does is it manages and it it uh, it controls the communication between the applications, and also where we have the old data, like it helps in like exchanging between the layers. And it is it to be short, it's responsible for, the data, the flow, the control. The session layer is responsible for the flowing of data.
Now, then what is the job of a data link layer if it's controlling the flow of data? That is the wrong answer. Sonayana.
Yes, sir. It's more like we can establish and manage and terminate the sessions by using the session layer. It's like keeping all track of the sessions, and also it provides a mechanism for the controlling every data.
Why do you keep on saying controlling the data? I'm not following. Where do you get that? I mean, are you guys Googling the answers or what? No, I mean, at a point, you're right. You're talking about maintaining the data and terminating the session, right?
Yeah.
So maybe when you mean data, you mean to say a browser maybe connection? Maybe that's what you mean to
It's
say.
more like start and control the conversation, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Understood now. Okay. All right. All right. So that's about the session layer. And Pujita, can you tell me what is the presentation layer?
Hello, yes, sir. Like presentation layer is all about like representation, for example, formatting of the data. Like it does the things like encryption and decryption, and yeah, that's
Yeah, that's basically spot on. Just formatting and structuring the data like encryption, decryption in different formats presenting to the user. Okay.
yes, yes, sir.
Sirisha Reddy, what is an application layer?
Yes, sir. It is the interface between the application and the network, and it acts like an end user activity, providing network service to the application.
So application is the end user activity where the actual application is written. Like, if a user wants to browse or send a message within a WhatsApp is an application. So WhatsApp itself comes under the application layer. So whatever the user does on the application, that activity is all under the application layer. We don't have control over that. The user will have control over that, right? So now let's take a real-time example and break that down into the 7 layers. Okay. So let's say there is a user and he is logging onto a laptop or a PC. And he wants to send a message, right? Or he wanted to let's say he wanted to what do you want to do? Let's say he wanted to download a file. Okay. So let's say he logged into the File Hippo website. Okay, it's a .com. It's called web server, right? So he wanted to download a small file. It can be, maybe he wanted to download a small software called Putty. Okay. Okay, so there is a user. He has a laptop. He's trying to log into filehippo.com on his web browser, and he's trying to download the software. This is the requirement. Okay. Any questions? Okay. So now the first, this activity of user logging into this filehippo.com application, web application, is called an application layer activity, right? Application layer is where the user is trying to use an HTTPS application on his laptop, on his web browser, he's trying to download a file. So that's all the application layer activity. So that's the application layer. And then the presentation layer is where the data is formatted in the background with the HTML code. The web page is written in a specific code, right? That the structuring of data will be done in the presentation layer. So presentation layer will structure the information in a certain format. The session layer will make sure that it will separate different sessions, right? So can you guys please mute? I don't want anyone to be unmuted in the class, please. So guys, please be on mute. So the third layer is the presentation layer, which will, sorry, I'm so sorry. The third layer that we're talking about is the session layer, which will be dividing those sessions, meaning like on a web browser, you opened a filehippo.com, and on the next tab, you might have opened a facebook.com. So there has to be a separation, right? So the session layer will make sure there are different sessions on your browser. And then the transport layer. So here I'm trying to download a file. If there is an interruption on my communication, my file download will stop, right? So let's say I'm trying to download a file. You might have seen when you're trying to download the file, if there's an interruption to the network, it will break the file and you have to re-download the file again and again, right? So this have to be a reliable communication. So at the transport layer, it will use TCP to download the file because it's a reliable communication. So that's about the transport layer. And next is the network layer. Your laptop will have an IP address. Filehippo.com website will have an IP address, and there has to be a IP to IP communication. That IP to IP communication will be done by using an IP protocol. There are different routing protocols. We'll discuss more when we talk about routing. But you know, the IP to IP communication, the data to data communication, the IP level will be done here at the network layer. So laptop IP needs to communicate with the Filehippo website IP. So the IP to IP communication will be done at the network layer. So whatever the data that you are trying to communicate, like downloading the file, that will be counted into ones and zeros. That ones and zeros will be sent. So if you want to download the file, right? So your request will be sent in ones and zeros, right? So that ones and zeros will be sent in a data link layer. So IP packets are sent into data frames. Data frames are nothing but ones and zeros. So that both source and destination will communicate. And remember, I told about sending them in the group so that there will be no loss of data. So packets will be sent into the data frames so that there will be no data lost. Okay. And the last one is the 7th layer, which is the physical layer. where the data is sent in the electrical signals. Like you don't see ones and zeros sending on the wire. You will see just the electric signal passing on the wire on the cable. So that's a physical layer which will send the ones and zeros in electric signals like ones and zeros. So a physical layer will convert bits into electric signals and send them over wire. Okay. So if you come from the top to bottom, application, presentation, session, transport, network, data, physical layer. So this is what a real-time example will look like in sending the data, in downloading the file. Okay. Is this clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Any questions, guys?
No.
No, sir.
Okay. That's about the OSI layer model and why we need the OSI model, because if there is any issue at a certain layer, it will be easy to troubleshoot. It will be easy to understand where the problem is. So that is why we have separated them into different layers so that it will be easy to troubleshoot the issue. There is a concept called dividing and conquering. If there is a big problem, if you don't know where the issue is, divide the problem into smaller chunks, deal with the chunk, and then fix the bigger problem. That is the concept of OSI model. Let's say a user comes in a company that he cannot download a specific file from internet. That's a big problem. But where could be the problem? Is it a network layer problem, like user unable to talk to the other IP address? That could be a network layer problem. Is it like a bad cable connection, like a laptop wire is not good? That's a physical layer problem. Is it like a browser problem, like they cannot maintain a session? That's a transport layer problem. Is it like an bad data request being sent and getting a bad response? Like sometimes you will see like 404 error on the web browser. That could be an application or server level issue. That's an application level problem. So to resolve the big IT problem into easy for an engineer to fix it, the IT departments, the ISO came up with an idea to fix this. The ISO developed this OSI model. ISO is nothing but International Organization of Standardization. So they came up with the OSI model. Okay. So that's about the OSI model, guys. So this is the fundamental model which will help you to resolve any network issues or troubleshoot. So when you have a problem, if you capture the data, when I mean capture, you have to download the data what the user is doing in the middle of the network, and you can understand more using a tool called Wireshark. So Wireshark will help you to understand each layer in detail. When you capture the data, it will separate those 7 layers and it will put you a format in the connection. Okay. So that's about the OSI layer model. Now let's have a heads up on the switching for tomorrow's class. So let's say I have a PC1. And I have a PC2. And this PC1 wants to talk to PC2. Okay, there will be a switch. Let's take a PC3 and PC4 as well. Okay, so there are 4 PCs in a lab in a small office. PC1, PC2, PC3, and PC4, and they all wants to communicate between them. Like PC1 wants to talk to PC2, 3, and 4. Let's say PC1 wants to send a file to PC2. PC2 will want to send a file to PC3, like that. They want to intercommunicate between them inside the same office. So what you will do, you will buy a switch and you will connect all of these PCs with a switch, and this switch will help you to communicate between all of them. So in tomorrow's class, we will look into how does the PC1 send the first frame with the broadcast message. How does the other PCs respond back? How does the switch make a table in maintaining these connections, and how it will send the data between all of them. So we will talk how does this work with an example, and then we will do a small lab on a tool called Packet Tracer, and we will see how does that work in the real time in the lab. Okay, so tomorrow we will talk about what is a switch. We will connect 4 PCs to the switch, and we will make all of those PCs to communicate between them. Okay, so we will send a message from PC1 to PC2, and we let them talk between each other by having a switch connection between them. So if you want to get a head start on tomorrow, read about what is a switch, what is a broadcast, what is a unicast, what is a MAC address table, what is a MAC address, how does this communication work. You can read a little bit and come to the class for tomorrow. Okay, I'm going to stop there, guys. I will leave the floor for any questions for last 5 minutes. If you have any questions, it's time to ask now.
I'm sorry to ask you this. What will be the class timings? Because it's in my first class. I have not seen the previous recording class also. So it's out of curiosity, I'm asking that.
Okay, 1 second. Let me stop the recording.